2021-22. Please join me for a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great.
Right. So, one thing on the agenda that is different tonight is that I'm going to make a farewell address, which started to be pretty brief, but I wanted to say a few words. This is my last full meeting. I'll be at town meeting, obviously. A couple of other small things. Have another full meeting. So before I get started, I just want to dedicate this speech to someone who really got me started, Shirley Smith. Shirley was a mentor of mine who loved Mendon, and her legacy continues to live on to this day. Without Shirley, I would not have taken the steps to be where I am today. I first decided to run for office. I knew that my biggest priority was to help guide Mendon in a positive direction. And to do that required some big changes. Change isn't always welcomed in an organization. Mendon was not the exception. But doing what is right is never easy, and I promised myself that I would always do what is right, even if it meant losing friends and upsetting people along the way. In my 9 years on this board, we have seen great progress. We hired a professional town administrator, we built a new police station, we worked to protect and support the open space, hired a new police chief, fire chief, and built a new library. Last but not least, we painted the town hall. Progress can't be accomplished without teamwork, and I've had the great opportunity in working with some talented folks on this board, and they have all exhibited the same desire to bring progress to Mendon while maintaining the character we have followed knowing. Thank you, Mike and Lonnie, for being such great partners in this journey. You've both been with me from the start in one way or another. I thank you all for your hard work and dedication to this town. I want to extend a thank you to all of the town employees and community members who helped make Mendon what it is. But I'd like to recognize some key people who have played pivotal roles in my experience as a select board member. Ann Mazar has been a constant in my time, not only on my time on the board, but even before that. Her words of wisdom have guided my decision-making for many years, and although we don't always agree, I have great respect for you. Ann's volunteerism has been extremely valuable, and we all owe her a debt of gratitude. Thank you, Ann, for your mentorship and all of the work you've done and continue to do for Mendon. Chief Kersey, we also go way back, but before I was elected on the select board, and your leadership has been apparent to me from the start. And I cannot thank you enough for guiding Mendon's police force out of dark times and into the light. You have shown time and time again that you can manage in stressful scenarios well, standing your ground on principle. It has truly been a pleasure working alongside you and doing what's best for Mendon's public safety. I think Chief Kessler is Chief Kessler on? Had a little speech. I'll tell him in person. Kim Newman, you have weathered the storm as much as I have. You have shown me so much about municipal management and have sparked the passion I have for working in government, and have somehow managed to convince me to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get a master's degree. We have truly spent an incredible amount of time strategizing the best paths for our town, and I will miss that greatly. Thank you for your leadership and mentorship, and I hope to be one day calling you as a municipal manager, seeking advice once again.
Yes.
Lastly, I want to thank my family from the bottom of my heart. In 2013, at the age of 21, I decided to run for selectman, and I made that decision alone. But not once did they ever doubt my ability or my decision They supported me during my tenure on the board. And I'm not going to miss hearing about all of these topics every time I go home. It's going to be nice to say, I have nothing to do with it. Call on and the other net new 3 members. I really do look forward to watching a new board take on the challenges of face together as a community. Thank you all.
Thank you, Myra.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure working with you. Definitely sad to see you go. Very pleasure. Cheryl, wow. I just will.
Thank you so much. Didn't really want it to be about me, but I really had to say it. It's been a long. Citizen statements and petitions. And correspondence considered. Who was the hands, right? Oh, Tom has his hand.
Go ahead, Tom. Oh, you're muted, but.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Lonnie. Is that better?
Much better.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment. I happened to see on the agenda that this was Mark's farewell, so I just wanted to, say to Mark on behalf of myself as a resident for many years and as a fellow elected official colleague, it's been a great pleasure to have worked with him, to have seen him perform in the work he has done. He's for a young individual to step forward when he did, to take on such an important role. I thought was a fabulous thing to do. I like to see more young people do that. And Mark, you've always stayed very professional in what you've done. You've managed to stay above the fray. And you have truly honored the seat that you'll be leaving soon. And I congratulate you and wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Correspondence, consider rock the block banner.
Oh, yeah, so we're looking, I don't know exactly when it'll be ready, but we're looking to put a banner across from the town hall across to the other street. We're talking to Subic National Grid to make sure it's okay to be fixed to the pole and to the town hall, and did speak with Alan about it, and I believe Alan's okay with it, and he'll assist us with getting it raised up high enough that nothing will hit it.
Oh, so it's not just.
I'm going to go across, and we'll just kind of have the dates and whatnot about the event.
So across Main right here.
Yeah, probably right from the town hall across the street, the next hole. I don't know. I would.
It's on here. You might as well.
Make a motion, we allow the rose and brush, right?
No, this is more or less the town really. There's no Brothers Brush are not. It's kind of
Oh,
town event, but not. There's no organization that is actually sponsoring it this year like the brothers did. It's kind of,
So it's a town.
yes and no. I suppose I'm sponsoring it, I guess. I don't want to take the credit for it other than I just kind of ran with it. But there's no town committee. It's just a bunch of residents in town that are assisting to seek the sponsorship and put all the details together. So again, there's no official committee at this point. So I guess it's the town.
Okay,
I don't.
Well, then we don't need, if it's gonna be the town, we need a motion, right?
Yeah.
So just table that. All right.
sounds good. Just national goal, with national grid goal for Vlad.
There's a plastic on the outside of it. Painted.
Mr. How are you, sir?
Very well, how is it?
Doing well, thanks. Do you want to talk a little bit about your request? Come on. Yeah, if you want to come up, that'd be great.
Well, it's a streetlight that I rent. National Grid. It was Mass Electric when I started renting it 50 years ago.
Okay.
50 some odd years ago. So I paid the rent on that streetlight every month since 1969. And I just thought it'd be nice if you folks would pick it up the rest of the way. I'm not gonna be there for more than 50 years. That farm in 1969, it was pretty black on that street, it wasn't a white anyway.
Right.
So everybody has benefited from me having that light there, including myself. I used to rent that for $44 a year. Now it's $12, $13 a month. In the summer, it's 9 something, in the winter, it's 13 something. If you don't want to pay for it, I'm gonna keep it there. But I just thought it'd be nice if you folks would like to pick it up for me.
Where is it on Black? I know 24.
It's on
Is that at
pole, it's in front of my house, pole 15.
that's close to the intersection, right?
Not really, the intersection,
Midway.
quarter of a mile in either direction. That's why I had it. It wasn't even any of the intersections then.
Do we know, do you know how many other, we pay for streetlights at every corner? Town, every intersection?
We pay for a certain number of streetlights, yes, but I've never actually even heard of one being private before.
Oh, so you can order a light from that, they're like, so for instance, at the building in Bellingham, we had one put on that lights up the flag, and then put one lights up our.
Streetlights.
Your street, I mean, they're not the traditional round ones that plug down the street, they're directed on our property.
I took over the one that Ellen Barrows had on Bay Street.
Well, many of them are rentals. I worked for the light company. I installed many. I'm not the only one on the vendor that's paying a rental.
No, I bet.
I'm probably the only one that's paying for 50 years.
It's amazing.
Lenny, does it flood the street, or does it flood your house?
Close with my house. Well, it's a
But
street.
it points to
Poles
the,
across the
it's over
street.
the street though,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a regular street light. It's across the street for me. It just happens it's at the end of my driveway on the other side of the street, which makes it ideal for me. But it's lighting up the street also. This isn't just coming down on my house.
Yep.
And it started out, like I say, $20 a year. We used to pay them annually. Now it's monthly, like everything else they change.
just budget to see here.
Budget.
Well, just to, everything has to get paid for it.
Yeah.
So we have to find out where it comes from.
Yes, streetlights.
Well, we have a line for streetlights. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to pay $200 a year. The question only becomes, how many other accounts are there? And I can't,
Exactly.
and now you're telling me there might be many, or I was thinking this was a few, so.
Well, I wonder if, I don't really understand fully how do we pay per streetlight the way that our system is set up for towns?
I don't really know. It's one
I'm
bill.
trying to remember that.
That's
We get
to look at.
a bill for all the streetlights.
Right.
But it's based on how many there are, the different wattages too, right? Because if you're only paying $12.
I'm paying for the lowest. one.
Yeah, right, you're getting a better deal than I am, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, you can see the new ones are cheaper. But they put up, when I first put it up, I put up on the mercury vapor, and they were nice white.
Right.
Well, since they've gone to the sodium, they orange, and they use less juice. So they charge you a little bit less, not a lot. So now I think they even want to go with LEDs at some point. Everything is a little bit less. I put a lot of them up over the years, change them, and then the light company maintains it, that's the best part. If it burns out, they fix it.
And while we're talking about it, I know it's on the state, on the town website, but if anybody's listening, they see a light at their intersection that's out, if they send an email to the town administrator, she contacts National Grid and fix it. I just told her about it.
They're very good at that these days, but they get ready to have them. Because there's men that work nights, and we call up on the street like out, they try their best to get it on as soon as possible. You don't wait weeks. Might wait a couple of days.
I'd like to see if we can, maybe we can discuss it for the next meeting, but also maybe we can find that connection, but find out how many privately owned lights there are in town before you. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's a light that's covering the street and fine, the problem is if 30 people show up at the next meeting and they all want us to take over the street lights, now it's not a couple $100 a year. We're-
Don't wait till they pay for it for 50 years. You're not setting a precedent. I do mine.
Well, that's the problem. So let us just do a little bit more research on it and we'll get it. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, water and sewer studies presentation. Yeah.
I'll just do a little intro for you. As you know, we were fortunate enough through a lot of effort by the selectmen to receive an earmark of $150,000 to conduct the water and sewer study. That money is now in contract, has now been signed. Indeed, he is anxious for us to get moving. I've had the pleasure of talking to 2 engineering firms. Because it's an engineering contract, it's not about bid. But the town administrator felt that selectmen, part of the administrators of this grant, should listen to both firms and hopefully make a decision. But go forward. The good news and the bad news. Good news is they're both excellent, and the bad news is one of them's not going to get it. And I'll tell you one other thing. I applied for what they call a housing choice designation, and we just were rewarded that last Thursday, Friday. And it doesn't necessarily come with any direct money, but gives us a lot of bonus points when we apply for grants. Anyhow, it doesn't have how. And as you know, I've applied to the state for one stop to match the 50 with another 150. And I think that's going to go a long way for that. That money won't be available until September, but we're anticipating doing this 2 phases, first phase, second phase, to utilize the full money. So I've asked both firms to introduce themselves, explain some of their history and why they think they are qualified to do this job, and then briefly talk about the approach that they would have. I know one commissioner, I've been working with the water commissioners on this, and not someone else's work, but I look forward to hearing what both firms have to say, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Chapter number 8.
Thank you so much. We want to thank you all for the invite here. I want to credit the town for moving forward and getting the grant money from the being in a small town like where I live, living in town, so my business card.
Vinny, I muted you just in case, just there was a lot of background noise. So if you need to say something, just unmute yourself. That's all. Thanks.
So again, I appreciate you inviting environmental partners here today. This is an exciting project to us because this is kind of what we do. We do water supply planning and wastewater planning, and extend that into design and construction. I've been with the firm for 3 years, but I've been in water supply. First of all, my name is Chuck Ellsberg, Senior Project Manager of Partners, and I've been in the business for over 35 years. And basically what I've done since I started way back in the day was water supply planning. I think In talking to Jack, and I want to credit him, he did a great job setting this up and out the RFQ for walls, and hopefully you had some time to review our package. We've been in this business since 1997 as environmental partners, and Emery and I have worked mainly in water supply. We understand that there's a wastewater component, but I think most importantly, water is the major utility we're looking at here. So next slide, please. Well, why don't I have Emery introduce herself? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm Anne-Marie Patrica, and I'm the Director of Geosciences for Environmental Partners. I actually was their first employee. Paul and Mark were engineers, and I've been doing geology, hydrogeology, going back to the 90s. It's what I love to do, and training up a lot of young people to be integrated in what we do. I've done pathways, solid waste. My focus is new source, groundwater modeling. We've done a lot of support with wastewater, absolute bed loading, integrating the two. So that's my focus.
So I just thought I'd just run through a quick agenda here. We know you don't have a lot of time, so we're gonna, I think maybe about 5 to 7 minutes, 10 at the max on our presentation, and then we open up for questions. First of all, we'll introduce EP to you and our project team, and then we'll talk a little bit about our water and wastewater experience and expertise, mainly in planning and our similar local projects. I think one of the things that's great about environmental partners is that we work with communities that are like-sized to me. And you'll see from, you saw in our qualifications package and in our slide presentation here, most of the communities are from around here, and they're small communities like Upton, work in Hopedale, right next door here, Roland. They're all similar populations to the town of Mendon and perform very similar services. And then we'll open it up for questions at the end. That's it. Questions for us. Slide. So a little bit about environmental partners. Emery kind of stole my thunder a little bit there. We've been in business for 24, I think it's 25 years now, starting in 1997. And with Paul and Mark started the company, but Emery was the first employee that they hired. So I think a credit to her. And she's been a big part of the firm and moving it forward. And we have, a total of 80 employees now, and we're growing like crazy and still expanding. So we have office locations in Quincy is our headquarters, in IES and then Middletown. So we list all of our services there. Obviously a broad range of experts and expertise, but really our sweet spot is drinking water and wastewater and planning, which is exactly what this project is all about. And like I said, we can do all of these, but for this project though, we feel really, really comfortable with this because our expertise locally and with very similar projects puts us right in line to do all this project. This is our project team, but I want to focus on the kind of the middle folks there. These are the principals of our firm, and those are the people who make the decisions at the firm, and they're going to be the people that we're interfacing with. Obviously, Emery, she introduced herself, but Paul Millett. Eric Kelly was supposed to be here tonight, and he's one of our principals. And, he does water, wastewater treatment, water supply, and collection systems as well. He's on vacation this week with his family, so he wanted me to extend his apologies. He couldn't be here, and then Ryan Algrove goes water and wastewater, and they've all been in the firm for a while. Experts in their fields. So, we have the broad range of whatever you guys are going to need with these experts.
Okay, so I want to go into a little bit on the technical end and some of the projects that we've worked on. Both look at water supply planning and the wastewater facilities. Before we get into them, kind of our approach has always been to work closely with the towns. I mean, we want to be in contact with you, what your needs are. Is this going to work for you? In partnership with the towns, that's That's our approach on all of our projects. So for water supply, we've listed a few of them. East Ham. The other thing I want to stress is we tend to work long-term with clients. East Ham, Provincetown, Wellfleet, we've been working with them since like 2000. And East Ham began with having some minor water issues around the landfill. And as they looked at it, they had no sewer system and no public water. Decided to address the whole town once the emerging contaminants became an issue at the landfill. And that's another focus that Environmental Partners has, is working with emerging contaminants, both assessing them and treatment. So, we're going to look into that if we get into any water supply here. But East Ham was a big project. We started from scratch, new source, and looking at the town maps. We've looked at a lot with vernal pools and priority habitats and dealing with fish and wildlife, along with the new source development. A lot of work integrating connections. There's a lot of interconnection work. There's a lot of involvement there. Like Hyannis had PFAS in their groundwater, so we worked with them right away to get to up their interconnections. And then the other thing, we really focus a lot on the southeast. We have clients down here, including Medfield, Norfolk. We've worked for a long time developing new supplies, integrating new systems, from water master plans, like, do you have enough water? Where should you be looking for more? Water conservation, the whole big picture. And so Norfolk, Medfield, Dayton, a smaller town. And then the wastewater facility planning. I know Mendon doesn't have any wastewater treatment systems at this time. So that's the kind of thing we would look at. It would be integrated, looking at what are your sources, are there failing septic systems? I know there are no TMDLs here, no designated impaired waters or anything like that. But your septic systems and around your lakes when you have small lots, is that going to be an issue? So we'll look at the big picture. And also, we've done master plans that just focus on wastewater, but we've also done integrated master plans with water, wastewater, and stormwater. So, and knowing that water is a critical issue here, I just wanted to show you kind of how we approach water supply assessment. And it's a creative side and a technical side, and it's starts with a desktop evaluation, and the figure on the right just shows the town of Mendon, and in green are the Aquifer Maps on the DEP website. So first thing we do is we look for, does the town have owning control enough land to cite as a public water supply well? Maybe need to look at well fields that have a smaller zone 1 requirement, as well as a single well, which has 400-foot zone 1. So we outline your properties, then we look at all kinds of layers, whether it's the aquifers, the surficial geology, the environmental receptors, are there any priority habitats? We look at potential sources of contamination, anything that could impact those sources, and then we can rank them in terms of, okay, this is the better sites, and then work with you to see, okay, well, we don't like this because it's not near our infrastructure, or, work together to come up with the best choices on. Then we go out and do exploration, install wells, test locations. And then if it looks like a viable site, we work through the whole new source process with Mass DEP, Water Management Act. And that's one of the things we work a lot with all the regions around here and have good relationships with the water and wastewater. So I guess in the last slide, we just want to summarize what our strengths are and why select environmental partners. as you can see, and what Chuck has pointed out, we have a strong technical team, and we really put our long-term employees on this project. They've been with us for a long time, doing this work for years and years. And Chuck being the project manager, this is right from his wheelhouse. We work with, like I said, towns of this size a lot, and, towns that didn't have anything to begin with. We've had a lot of award-winning success, and several of our projects have gotten awards. Eastham being the big one. We're familiar with funding sources, so the SRF funding program and other funding programs, and we're always having webinars. So we'll discuss different options for the town. And I feel like coming in and starting from scratch, looking at the picture, of course, we bring a new, fresh perspective. Look at the 2017 water plan that was put together. So there's a lot of information out there. We'll take that into consideration. And then, environmental partners, our key is that we like to work closely with our clients. Quality is top, and we're responsive. We want to work integrated with you.
And then I think if I could just close, obviously I've worked in the business a long time. I've only been with VP for 3 years, but it's a phenomenal firm. I really enjoy working there. As Emery very clearly stated, and it's so true, is that we become part of the team with the community. We're a small firm, a relatively small firm, but we have big capabilities. So, and we deal with towns that are just like it. And we're excited about this project, and hopefully we'll have a chance to work together with you. If you have any questions.
One other thing I wanted to add too is, in all of the projects, especially in the newer source wastewater, we like to be publicly involved. That's critical, is to present it to the town and keep them informed. It goes a lot smoother if the town is on board.
Yeah, I think
That's a
that
necessity.
2 of the projects that we kind of highlighted early on, where they were basically new systems, was Eastham and East Hampton, Connecticut, which Emery and I are teaming on right now. It's very similar, where we're looking at where's the water going to come from. You hope that it can be from within town, so we'll do exploration. That's what we're planning on doing in East Hampton, Connecticut as well. If not, we'll look at interconnections with surrounding communities. And we have relationships with, Upton, Bellingham, communities. Hopedale, we highlighted one of the projects. So, to work for.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Maybe I missed it. Who, I've been through these before.
Sure.
Who is going to be the person we see, I see, they see the most?
I live in
You're pretty high up on the echelon here.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on the day-to-day. I'm gonna be the day-to-day guy. And, I think that, if you check on any of our references, several of them, Emery and I work directly with. One of them is on your water commissioners here, for sure, that been talk to you about what EP does and so I'm gonna be the one that's day-to-day, and, half an hour away, I can be here at any time.
And I think my second question, and I'll ask this of the next firm too, is maybe convince us all that what comes out of all this at the end of the day is something that's implementable. It's not high in the sky and on a table. It has to be something we can work with and get to, whatever that is. And I don't think any of us know.
Well, that's a great question, and I guess if we had a crystal ball, we would know for sure, but I think with our track record, what we did in Eastham, especially on the Cape, I mean, we started out from the beginning. I think that credit goes to the town for getting that funding forward with it. It's extremely good, but we're gonna do everything in our power to make sure that, we can do whatever you need to do. Hopefully we can the source in town, but if not, then we'll for support. You've done a great job.
They're like, you know, we have a team plan. There has been some drilling out here from potential aquifers and species. So, you know, I think it detailed what we're out there. I didn't find the blocks, but it not. What's going to be best for you now? That's we've done several studies, and having a systematic look like this down the site city out there. So we're gonna proceed with it. Fantastic.
And for several communities, like Anne Marie said, that I've worked with installing cedar connections or wholesale water supply connections. You know, with Hopedale, obviously, there's a concern about quantity there, but you have a element that has excess water supply.
Vincent, anything else?
Griffiths? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. I wanted to say nice job at the presentation so far. I've got a question for you. I see you developed a system right from scratch down there in Eastham. I wanted to know, what were the biggest challenges that you guys face as a firm helping the community develop their public water supply? And so it's gonna be a two-part question, biggest challenges, and then what is the process, or what is the length of time for DEP or the permitting process to put a new source online?
It's a great question, Ben, and I think I didn't work on the project, but in discussing it with my colleagues that did, and Emery might be able to add a little bit more clarity to it. It was buy-in by the community, for one thing. It was something that DEP actually forced because that they had residents that had tainted water quality, you know, from landfill.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was something that really had to be done, Ben, but I think that it was a long effort to first get the conceptual design through, but also, I mean, it's still going on right now. It's a more than a 10-year process right now. And that Emery had mentioned that was one of the award-winning projects that he had. It's won several awards and kind of a showcase project for a lot of water supply.
Yeah, no, I think it was, you know, working with the community and keeping them informed. We started there in 2000, and in 2006, there was contamination from the landfill. We looked at a small water system to deal with that. It was hard to get everybody on board. Then we looked at the town, you know, septic systems and wells right next to each other. We were looking at their nitrate levels and also finding them funding. When you get the appropriate funding and keep them on board. We have people with the boots on the ground there that work with these people every day, keeping them up to date on where we are, what we're connected. You want to be connected. And a big selling point too was having fire suppression hydrants throughout the town. So even if you connect to that, so.
I just wanted to make one more statement. I don't know if Environmental Partners is aware of this, so I know the selectmen are. Minden has a very small public water supply. Unfortunately, we don't have our own source. We purchase our water from the town of Hopedale. And because of that, we're very limited. We can't expand the system, and it's really tough on commercial property trying to develop parts of 140. You know, because the first question any industry asks is, can we connect them to a public water supply? So this would be a real benefit for the town of Minden to be able to have its own source of water. And this is just, it's a good opportunity for the town because there's a lot of federal money available once we were to do this study, kind of give us a roadmap on what to do and target some areas after a study that we can, you know, developing a new source or expanding this system, or you know, maybe installing a water tank and that sort of thing. But this is really the time to do something like this because of the federal money that's out there. And that was it. That's all I was going to say.
But it may end up being an integrated approach. You may have a water supply that can deal with the east side of town, but you might need an interconnection if you want expansion on the other side. So we'll look at all the economics of what's gonna be best for the town.
And I think Tim brought up a great point in that this is the optimal time to do a study like this because it's going to be terrible funding. I mean, they're saying that now that they're going to extend, there's no way that the federal government's going to be able to spend all those funds in 5 years. So they're probably going to extend the state. So I think, this is a prime time.
Any questions from?
I don't have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Very much. Appreciate it.
My cards are here.
So our next engineering firm is Woodard and Curran. I know there's one representative on Scott Salvucci is on, and you got 2 guys here.
How are you? How you doing? I'm sure it's a standing, so pull this off. So. Yeah.
Where's your?
You're ready to go. Okay. I'm sure you all have a vision for Mendon 20 years from now. Everybody's vision might be a little bit different, but you've all formulated this vision about a need for water and wastewater utilities in order to meet whatever that vision is. What you need now, you've convinced already your legislators to allocate some funds to that vision, and you need a good partner to work with you. I'm Scott Medeiros, Senior Planning Manager with Woodard and Curran. Have Rob Little, our National Practice Leader for Water, with me, and Scott Salvucci, who has been working primarily with Jack on this. Unfortunately, because of schedule changes, is joining us from Florida, where he had an obligation. So there he is there.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Thank you. If you can all see me and hear me, I want to say good evening. Scott Salvucci, a principal with Woodard and Curran, and just wanted to introduce myself. And I've been, as Scott mentioned, the point of contact working with Jack to date. And I just appreciate your understanding that I couldn't make it in person. But I know you're in great hands with Scott and Rob. So thank you.
Thank you.
Tonight we're going to talk about, we'll talk about 3 things. A little background on Woodard and Curran, and a recommended approach to maximizing the grant funding that you've had allocated up to this point, and then a little bit about our experience delivering similar projects, and then we'll wrap it up and take some questions. So Woodard and Curran, as we've indicated in the submittal that I hope you've had a chance to take a look at, we're an integrated engineering planning services firm. We also operate water and wastewater systems across the country. The drinking water supply and treatment, wastewater collection, and primarily strategic funding and public outreach, which we see as major elements of a project like this, especially in its infancy, as you start looking at how you're going to map out your utilities for the future. With the vision to unlock your economic growth, we've prepared a plan here that shows you Mendon in the middle of all of your surrounding communities, and we've highlighted those that have both water and sewer. I think it sort of goes without saying you've already accessed some of those in a very small way, as Vinny just referenced in his conversation prior and mentioned in his comments. This is just really for overview purposes. We can skip to the next slide. I'll kick it over to Rob.
So as Scott mentioned, my name is Rob Little. I seem to have lost my voice for the last 3 hours, so so our approach here is to really take advantage of the unique opportunity that the town has to build a system from scratch. That doesn't happen an awful lot. You're talking about both municipal water and wastewater. There's a lot of different steps that you go through as you develop this. But we feel that our approach is one that's going to, again, maximize the funding we've already received, and then the one-stop money that you've applied for already. Among the things we're going to look at, and I'm getting into the technical piece here, is expanding the existing systems from your neighbors. That gets into capacity issues. Will they guarantee you that water? What is the price of that water going to be? If you have some development that would like to come to town, it would be great from a tax revenue perspective. What amount of water are they going to need? And is that going to be within the limits that your neighbors give you? That's something that we would look at. On the left-hand side, I think is the crux of it, putting in new municipal well or wells. There's a whole series of maps. I won't get into technical details here, but there's Mass DEP has a very complex process for obtaining water supply under the SWINNY program. That's a Sustainable Water Management Initiative. But of course, there's the new well approval process. So I guess we can skip to the next slide, please. So I'm going to jump sort of to the third bullet item there under data collection and looking at existing conditions. We know there's information that's been out there already. We've reviewed some of that. We've looked at all these maps. What we're going to try and do is avoid a situation where Mendon is going from one color on this map to another. What I mean there is the more change you have to the aquifer patterns in town, the more difficult it may be to permit through DEP. So the third bullet item, what we'd like to do is identify the overall needs and goals for the town first. You all have an individual vision. We're going to sit around at stakeholder meetings. Get everybody's input on that, identify and come to a common consensus on what the town's vision for water supply is. How much water are you looking to get? What area would you like to cover? 6 feet of Main Street, or are we branching out from the main area? Obviously, as you branch out, it has the potential to cost more money in infrastructure. Water mains are not cheap to put in, by the mile as you start expanding away from that central business district. So identifying the goals and needs of the town early on, I think is going to be critical to maintaining the schedule here. Prior consultant was right. This is an ideal time. There's money coming down to water and wastewater industry from the federal government that is going to be made available to towns like Mendon. And I think this is an ideal time to get some of this planning underway so we can take advantage of that funding. Once the needs and goals of the town are clearly established, or at least you have a roadmap of where you want to go, I would recommend getting in front of DEP very early on in the process. Understand what their requirements are going to be from the Sustainable Water Management Initiative that I mentioned. You don't have a municipal supply here. So putting in a new well is going to eliminate the need for a lot of private supplies for these developments. It's also going to bring your water supply into a centralized area. So you need to look at town-owned parcels and what areas of town are protected. Are there going to be land acquisition costs, that sort of thing. So we bring all this together, identify the town's wishes with regard to water and a wastewater collection system. I don't want to dismiss that. And then get with DEP to understand what the permitting requirements for that system are going to be based on the demand that you're looking to withdraw from the ground. Actually, back one slide. Sorry. My apologies. So our goal would be to do that first phase with the money that's already been earmarked for the town. Should that second batch of funding, the extra $150,000 come through, that's when I would recommend getting into more of the exploratory program. There's Aquifer Maps, those were mentioned before. Those are a great place to start in the desktop level. You're investing a little bit of money to get a little bit more certainty about how much water you're going to be able to get. As you start hiring drillers to go out and do small diameter test wells and getting into the Mass DEP, well withdrawal permitting process, you spend a little bit more money each time, but incrementally you become more and more certain that you're going to be able to get a certain amount of water out of the ground and what the quality of that water is going to be. The last thing you would want to do is put in a high producing well that has, contaminant in it. That's going to need removal, whether it be iron and manganese, which would require removal for aesthetic concerns, or something like PFAS, which some of your neighbors have found. So those are all things that we'll look at as we get into the exploration program, and we're very familiar with that process.
You're going to take the next slide, but I'll just jump in. I think it's important to note that our approach to developing our scope for this project, and you'll see that in more detail in our submittal, is to take the $150,000 that's dedicated. It's the only thing guaranteed right now. So to get you the maximum value out of that money, so to cover as much ground as possible, evaluate the possibilities of connections or interconnections, evaluate the possibility of likely locations for wells based on all the parameters that are necessary to be considered during that process, and get through a complete process that sets you up for next clear steps for the future funding. So if that comes from one stop, great. If it comes from another round of earmarks, great. We will be ready to spend that next money with some clear objectives at the end of phase one.
All right, so we have some successful experience in this area. I've shown some, this is not a comprehensive list of our projects, but I picked some local ones that are, both recent and relevant to the type of work you're doing here. We've done well investigations and re-permitted wells for Dighton. Skipping down to Mansfield, we're doing 2 actually PFAS removal in addition to some additional wells to increase the capacity of those. And then just across the border in Rhode Island, we just went through the well exploration program, which is similar to Massachusetts. There's some nuances that are different. But that was a case where we started from scratch. We had a number of parcels identified in the town owned, and through an iterative process, found out which of those were going to be able to yield the most water, advance those to short and long-term pumping tests, and ultimately received approval. And actually, Friday, I'm going to ribbon cut them and become a feed facility there, which it greatly is going to greatly offset the cost of water that they had from their adjacent communities, as well as the surface water plant they had. So the economics of these projects plays a big role. And even in that case, we weren't creating a system from scratch. We were offsetting a significant cost for that community by switching to a groundwater-based system from a surface water-based system.
Yeah, on the wastewater side, we cover wastewater, and we put some more significant wastewater information in our proposal, but Sudbury is actually a great example. We're currently engaged in a comprehensive wastewater management plan development for Sudbury. They've been studying that for years and years and years, and there's been study on study on study, and they're all on a shelf like most studies that are done for municipalities. We're doing one that is comprehensive, that evaluates septic management across the community too. And it's interesting that it protects Vinny's water supply that he manages over in Sudbury. So he's part of this conversation, and we're protecting his water supply. That's the primary focus of the CWMP, but it's also been a secondary benefit of the CWMP will be to not only deal with potential contamination of his zone 1 area around his public water supply wells, but also offer the opportunity for economic development to occur in that Route 20 corridor, if you're familiar with Sudbury. And Easton, it's just another relatively local example of CWMP that turned into a number of sewer projects that we currently have ongoing and have recently completed. I'll close with a thought. We're happy to be here. These are 2 images, 20 years of growth. And the question I pose is, what does the next 20 look like on this Route 16 corridor? You can see some distinct changes there, and I think everybody knows where a lot of the development has occurred on Route 16. We don't have an image of Route 140 here, but we believe that we're the right partner for you to help you attain your own individual vision as a group for what the next 20 years looks like in Mendon. I sympathize personally with you in your position as a former selectman in Douglas, which is a very similar scenario to Mendon, where we struggled for economic development like you wouldn't believe, and we had to beg and try to get Webster to extend utilities up into the state forest area where we had some development, and we had to collaborate with other adjacent communities. It'll be Northbridge and Sutton out in the Lackey Dam area to try to get some economic development to offset our tax base. And I sat in your seat. I struggled with it. I know exactly where you sit. So we thank you for having us here tonight, and we'll open it up to questions.
I'm asked the same too. Who am I going to see every day?
Yeah, well, we have the benefit of going second. You'll see this guy right here, Scott Salvucci, live from Florida. Scott will be your CM/PM on a day-to-day basis.
And then the second question's the same one as well, and you kind of mentioned that our plan sitting on a shelf. This has to be based in reality and something that's implementable, that the town can manage to bring to fruition, not something pie in the sky.
Well, I think, and I'll let Rob chime in as he wants. I don't want to dominate the response to that, but I think it's important. I think, as I said, I've been through this personally with a small community here, the Blackstone Valley, where, you know, it's primarily residential based. It's expensive to do this kind of work. So I think that that's part of the eye and the lens in which we'll work together with your community to look at it through is how do you implement, what's the right thing to do here? Because it might find a perfect water source in one corner of your community that you absolutely will never be able to afford to furnish water to the entire community from that source. It just won't be realistic. We all recognize that the dollars and cents associated with that, once the federal government decides to deliver you, you know, $100 million for your water system, we all know that's unrealistic. So you need to take a look at it through the right lens, and you've got to look at how can you target the areas where you really need water and sewer more than other areas, and how do we try to fit that into a box that can be fundable and segmented in a way that works for your community.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, you know, back to something I said about that iteration process. We're sitting down with you early, identifying the, you know, the needs and goals of the town. We would then go away and estimate what that might cost, you know, not only from a supply perspective, but also from a geographic perspective. What is that horizontal infrastructure, those water mains? What is that going to cost to install? If that number is too big, based on the various funding mechanisms that might be available in the town, which sounds like some of, you might have some new avenues opened up to you recently, which is a great thing. But, you know, sitting down, identifying those needs early on, and then incrementally going through that process of, you know, spend the money that you have to become more certain that you have a certain amount of supply available, before you start spending money on drillers and long-term pumping tests and our services to get to the next step, if that's not something that's going to be necessary for your long-term goals.
One other point, funding and finance is something that we highlighted in our slide, and we have that very heavily highlighted in our document that we provided with you in the response to your RFQ. We understand and recognize those challenges, and we've invested as a firm in strategic approaches to that. And I thought it was interesting that housing choice is actually very beneficial in a number of ways, including discounted rates on SRF loans as well. So if you're a housing choice community, I believe there's also a discount of the rate that you pay. And I think it's a 0.5% discount or something of that nature. So we've historically worked with our clients to develop a long-term funding plan. It's difficult to get a utility off the ground. You have to have enough users to pay for the utility. I know Dayton is a great example where, you know, they have a water district. It's not exactly, it's a town. It's similar to what you have in Sudbury, but they actually have an ad valorem tax contribution from the community as well, because you could never run a system based solely on the rates of the users with such a small base. I think there's some nuances associated with implementing and incorporating and building out a system in a small town like yours, but it's not insurmountable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The only last thing I'm gonna add is that I'd like to think we're at an advantage. I did an almost identical study with a consultant in Carver, where they were in a very similar position. The neighboring town had some infrastructure in Carver. They wanted to start their own water system or join in with another town. And we ended up doing a heat well system, and it does get expensive. So I can appreciate the second phase. We really will need that if we go on.
Very good. Thank you very much.
For the presentation.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Scott.
guys. Thank you.
Hey,
Need to turn it over to the FinCons of the public hearing. What we're going to do. Definitely.
Yeah, so.
I can't do it. It's called the budget hearings. Yeah, I have 5 minutes. Well, what time will we be?
Yeah.
I got a copy.
So I'd like to open the FinCom meeting for 7:05.
I think just Jackson's other studies. Yeah,
The water one, yeah. Selected.
not a contract, but I'd like you to see your preferred engineer that so we can get into. As promised, that I don't know if it was the last meeting, probably the meeting before that, we had a committee meeting consisting of the town administrator, the finance director, and town council, as well as Duncan Chapman from Keller Williams. And we went over both proposals for 8 Morrison and both proposals for Ferguson Milford. And I'm prepared today to tell you that for 8 Morrison, well, I should remind everybody that the minimum bid was the appraised value. Everyone who submitted or was going to submit or had interest in submit was given that appraisal with all the way in advance. There was only one qualified bidder, and that was Route 35 Realty Corp. The appraised value was 570,000. 570. Yes, $570,000 was the appraised value. The bid value was $577.77. Town council said it was a legal bid. And we're recommending that we go forward. One at a time, vote for everyone. I don't usually vote. All right, with Milford, it got a little trickier. As you know, it's down on Route 16. We had 2 bids. We had, I should say, the assessed value came out at $300,000.
Assessed or appraised?
Appraised, I'm sorry. We had 1 bid from Patriot Holdings for $400,000. They plan on doing a storage facility. They also made a commitment to maintain the access road that we maintain now to the solar field in the back. They also were going to donate approximately 10 acres to the town that abuts the wetlands and develop a trail system and donate $40,000 to that effect. It's tricky because the other bidder was Amoresco, and they are the developers who developed the solar field in the back. And their bid is $40,000 a year for 20 years, or $45,000 a year for 25. So we, with the help of Keller Williams, who's here, tried to make this oranges to oranges, apples to apples, and it's not exact. We guesstimate that the Patriot Holdings will bring in after 20 years. I want to get my numbers right. About $3.5 million. And that's in taxes, the front and the cost or the sales. And that's with a 2% escalator that the assessor suggested. Looking at Amoresto, it's a little trickier because it's a lease. There'll also be taxes. It's called a pilot payment in lieu of taxes because solar is not taxable. It's an agreement you have. And we're guessing about $2.5 million after 20 years, and you can bump that up a little bit more if you went 25 years. I don't have to tell you, oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't have to tell you the differences. One is you're selling it, go on. The other one, you're leasing it for 20 or 25 years and you go on. I will say this, as a planner, I'm very concerned about the visual impact from Route 16 private. And the good news is not only would it have to go in front of the planning board, but we're in a unique position that whomever you choose, and if town meeting agrees with it, that we'll negotiate and we just won't sell it if they're not the one to soften up the visual effects and make it attractive. So it puts us in an advantageous position. So I think, in my mind, we can put that aside. That's a given. So the committee kind of wanted to leave it up to you. You know, you make a little bit more money by selling it, or you make a little less money, but you still own it, whoever's here in 25 years.
Yeah, Jack, maybe just a couple of additional.
This is
points.
Duncan Chapman from Keller Lane.
Right, thank you. So just a few additional points. The 25 years that Jack says is absolutely correct. But the solar company also has 4 5-year options on top of that. So most likely they would tie that up. As Jack already said, we tried to do the financial analysis, apples to apples. They're going to use pretty much all of the land. Patriots Holding is going to use about 7 acres. They would build their self-storage in 2 phases, 50,000 and then another 50,000 on that 7 acres. And then Jack's already said, then donating the rest back to the town and then providing those trails and parking up to 40,000 along Money Brook. So one's a more condensed development, pays a little bit more. One's spread out, and as Jack has already said, you get the land back most likely after the option period's 45 years.
That's the compliment.
Well, I don't know how it's up to be for me, right? I feel like we do a really good job at keeping our solar fields kind of out of sight. Putting it right on the side of Route 16 is not ideal. You have a need for storage facilities in the town. One across the street is 100% full at all times. I've never been able to get one in there. I think I've looked for myself, but I've asked multiple occasions of people looking for them. And we can definitely, that would be a benefit to our, I think. And it seems to bring in some good tax dollars. That would be my opinion.
Yeah, I think that we need to offload our commercial land to private individuals, stop holding on to. And this has been talked about before I've been on. So we're finally at a place where we can decide.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. So to me, we've taken this property and we leased it for solar and it's worked out for us, but I also don't want to see continue to be some land when there's an option to sell. Because we weren't able to sell.
Yes, and that's what led to the solar. Now, we have an option.
So one of the key pieces too, it doesn't require water, it doesn't require sewer, it's a very low impact.
Very
for
low.
that area.
Well, both.
No, oh, yeah, yes, that's a fixed.
I think you have
Putting it
two,
back on the
We
tax.
can always put solar on top of the building.
you have two options. You can choose to move forward with one and bring one to town meeting. You know, the decision, again, the option to be able to sell it or lease it at all is still contingent upon the vote at town meeting.
Yeah.
So you have to decide if you want to go forward with one project that we will be presenting as the project on that site, or if you still want to be presenting it as options or as in a direction you would go. That's really, either way, on both properties, we still have to finalize the agreements.
Oh, so I mean,
After we get authority. to do
if that's
so.
the case, I would present options. My single opinion isn't right immediately. But I would love to just see it, be that choice, but I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, because it's sometimes, you know, when we get to the floor, people do want to know what we're going to use it for, but I think, you know, having just the ability to be able to develop them any which way is also important, right? Which within the parameters of what the zoning is over there. And if these deals were to fall apart in any way, we would then still have authority for the selectmen to continue to try to pursue something on that site. And I think that's important. I don't want to mislead anyone by thinking it's too specific to one project.
And I think we can, you know, as a board, we can speak to our preferences. And is it the same with 8 Morrison? Now, I didn't present the second bid because it didn't meet the minimum threshold. I should add that Route 85's proposal was, they own property that abuts it that has frontage on Morrison, and they want to use it for commercial office space. The other bid, which was only 300,000, so that was 270,000 below the value was for growth facilities. But we didn't entertain it because it wasn't legitimate.
I think it should be broadly appraised down.
Right.
So that didn't meet the parameters.
Correct.
Right.
But I think just explain.
Okay. But I think it's the same, which is we want the option. Like, here's the example of some of the things that we went out. We got multiple options. One wasn't valid, but these are the types of projects that people are interested in for these parcels. And will you grant us the permission to pursue that, basically, is what we're asking. And then we negotiate the deals after the fact.
You sound like a plan. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next time.
And imagine how you get roped into this next.
That's another story.
Thank you, Jack.
Not for the families.
I know.
So, all right, so we'll go through the budget, line by line. If there's any questions.
I just want to confirm, this is the correct budget, right? The latest one with today's date?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't changed it since it's up there, but there's a PDF in there, probably we should be working off of, because that's what
Okay.
everybody has.
No problem. This is 451 or the 412?
I've also saved it in the selectmen's folder. Should be final budget for 12.
412?
There you go.
Got it.
Should be good. Well, we'll go through, read line by line, Joe. If there's any questions, hold on, we'll mark it, come back to it. That makes sense.
Somebody got to keep track of the whole?
I can do that today or.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Let me just share this out. Hold on one second.
Yeah, no problem.
If anybody at home, so I'm assuming we're gonna do holds from home as well. So if anybody's gonna hold, just put your hand up, and we will do our best to try to catch that, okay? Or no, actually unmute and just yell hold. That'll be even easier.
Ready to go? Yeah. All right, so Department 1, so general government, Department 114, moderator, salaries, $100. Line item B, expense, $100. Department 122, select. Line item A, stipends, $10,200.
I'm sorry. I don't see $100 under salaries for moderator.
It's not under expenses.
Oh, I thought it was red.
Oh, you know something?
Oh, it is expenses.
Oh, it's zero, sorry.
Oh, it's zero. My line.
It's salary, but it's one line, that's one.
Good call, Mark.
Just making sure. I didn't get to the first line. Appreciate that. Killing it.
Now you're
Just start. Start, no, that was the dress rehearsal songs, but I just want to make sure that everyone's listening.
So, all right, so we'll start over. Department 114, moderator. Line item A, salaries is zero. Line item B, expenses is $100 for a total. Department 122, select. Line item A, stipends is $10,200. Line item B, expenses is $52,500 for a total of $62,700. Department 131, finance committee. A, salaries, $2,000. Line item B, expenses, $1,000. Line item C, reserve for general expenses, $45,000. Line item D, reserve for negotiations, $30,000, for a total of $78,000. Board of Assessors, I'm sorry, Department 141, Board of Assessors. Line item A1, stipend, $800. A2, salaries, $85,080. Line item. Did I say that right? $85,080, yep, yep. Line item B, expenses, $7,625, for a total of $93,505. Department 145. Department 151, legal counsel.
145.
Did I skip that?
It's okay.
So, all right, so Department 145, Finance Department. Line item A1, salaries, $113,925. Line item B, expenses, $89,060. Line item D, tax title foreclosure, $2,000. Subtotal, $204,985. Department 151, legal counsel, expenses, $80,000. Total, $80,000. Department 161, town clerk. Salaries, $68,798. B, expenses, $4,525. Total, $73,324. Department 162, elections and registrations. Line item A, salaries, $800. Line item B, expenses, $35,064. Subtotal, $35,864. Department 171, conservation, salaries, $16,182. Expenses, line item B, $19,241. Total, $35,423. Department 175, planning board. Line item A, stipend, $924,500. Line item B, expenses, $42,272. Total, $43,197. Department 176, zoning board. Line item A, salaries, $2,420. Line item B, expenses, $2,400. Total, $4,820. Department 179, land use committee, expenses, $2,550. Total, $2,550. Town reports, expenses. Yeah, $2,250. Total, $2,250. Department 196, unpaid prior year's bills, expenses, $0. Department 199, Town Hall Services, salaries, $364,998. Expenses, line item B, $311,591. Total, $676,589. Public Safety, Department 210, salaries, $1,533,830. Line item A1, chief salary. For police department, I should say, excuse me. So line item A1, chief salary, $119,920. A2, salaries, $1,078,660. A3, overtime wages, 130.
So, Fire Chief, I have a quick question. Are we still gonna vote all the salaries in one item? So we'd avoid the end of the year transfers like we've been doing the past few years?
Yeah,
Or are we gonna vote on each line?
no, they'll be all rolled up into one. That's why salaries is actually just the sum total of those, but
Okay,
it's purpose there.
all right, thank you.
A3, overtime wages, $130,000. A4, administrative assistant salary, $60,660. A5, minimum wage, no reimbursement from the state of Mass, $144,590. Expenses, $209,900. Cruiser replacement, $64,200. Total, $1,807,930. Department 220 Fire Department. Salaries, $891,415. A1 Fire Chief salaries, $129,573. A2 Call salaries, $53,680. Full-time wages, $608,986. A3 overtime wages, $98,176. $99,176. Thank you. Line item D, ambulance replacement. Expenses B. Oh, I just jumped, I'm sorry. My fingers moving down.
Cheat sheet, is that really work?
No, it's really not. Honestly, the set of glasses is working. I'm dying with these 1.25s. Anyway, we're in line item B, correct? Line item B, expenses, $149,100. Line item D, ambulance replacement, $32,314. Fire capital equipment account, $75,577. Total, $1,158,406. Building inspector, A, salaries, $52,035. Line item A3, contractual services, $1,000. Line item B, expenses, $5,435. Total, $58,470. Department 242, gas inspector. A, salaries, $7,200. B, expenses, $100. Total, $7,300. Department 243, plumbing inspector. A, salaries, $5,500. B, expenses, $250. Total, $5,750. Department 244, sealer of weights and measures. B, expenses, $1,500. Total, $1,500. Department 245, electrical inspector. A, salaries, $14,300. B, expenses, $225. Total, $14,525. Department 291, emergency management. A, salaries, $3,500. B, expenses, $4,250. Total, $7,750. Department 292, dog officer. B, expenses, $13,500. Total, $13,500. Department 294, tree ward. A, salaries, $3,500. Expenses, $45,600. Total, $49,100. Department 299 dispatch, B, expenses. $40,000. Total, $40,000. Schools, Department 301, line item B, operational assessment, $10,716,664. Submitted on regional school. Line item B1, minimal local contribution, $7,935,812. B2, transportation and fixed assets, $1,128,968. B3, operational additional, $1,651,884. D, long-term debt, cloud school, $300,583. E, long-term debt, Eastfield Hill, $68,631. Total, $11,085,878. Department 310, Blackstone Valley Schools. B, operational assessment, $1,236,242. C, debt services, $10,616. Total, $1,246,858. Public Works Department 421, road machinery. B, expenses, $65,498. Total, $65,498. Department 422, highway construction and maintenance. A, salaries, $449,909. A1, salaries, $307,817. A2, highway supervisor salaries, $107,592. A3, overtime wages, $4,500. A4, police overtime wages, $30,000. B, expenses, $246,450. Total, $696,359. Department 423, snow and ice removal. A, salaries, $40,000. B, expenses, $149,000. C, used equipment, $5,000. Total, $194,000. Department 424, streetlights. B, expenses, $19,500. Total, $19,500. Department 450, water department. A, salaries, $1,463. C, expenses, $23,700. Total, $25,163. Department 491, soldiers and sailors rates. B, expenses, $100. Total, $100. Public welfare. Department 510, order costs. A, salaries, $5,575. And B, expenses, $50,900. C, trash disposal, $145,000. D, trash collection, $338,000. E, trash administration, $4,000. F, testing, landfill and beach, $20,000. Oh, thank you very much. So the total on that is $563,475. Department 541, Council on Aging. A, salaries, $131,379. B, expenses, $16,061. Total, $147,440. Department 543, Veterans Benefits. A, salaries, $3,000. B, expenses, $800. C, Aid to veterans, $35,000. Total, $38,800. Culture and Recreation Department, 610. Library, A, salaries, $146,247. A1 salary, $71,830. A2, library salary director salary, $74,417. B, expenses, $141,245. Total, $287,492. 630, Parks Department, A1 salaries, $30,500. A2, Parks Director salary, $35,105. A3, lifeguard salary, $16,000. B, expenses, $19,230. C, site improvements, $2,000. Total, $102,835. Department 691, Historical Commission, B, expenses, $4,000. Total, $4,000. Department 692, Special Events, B, expenses, $400. Total, $400. Debt Services, Department 710, retirement of debt principal expenses, $540,000. Department 751, interest on long-term debt, B, expenses, $198,109. Total debt service, $738,190. Employee benefits, Worcester County Retirement, Department 911, Worcester County Retirement, B, expenses, $926,755. Department 912, workers' compensation, B, compensation, $24,000. Department 913, unemployment insurance, B, expenses, $36,314. Department 914, health insurance and other employee benefits. B, expenses, $1,058,440. Department 915, long and short-term disability, B, expenses, $25,000. Expenses, $61,000. Department 919, police and fire accident insurance, B, expenses, $60,000. Department 945, property and casualty insurance, B, expenses, $100,000.
Hold on now.
919, hold. Just cleaning up, I'll go back to 945. All right, so 945, property and casualty insurance, B, expenses, $145,250. So special articles and other expenses, B, cyclical inspection programs, $6,500. Update evaluation, C, $17,000. Police matching grants, line item D, is $2,500. For a total of $26,000. Other expenses, B, assessors overlay, $125,000. C, local aid assessments, $19,768, for a total of $144,768. We've got the town amendment expenditures, town operational expenses is $9,019,859. School operational expense, $11,963,522. Debt exclusions, $1,107,404. Special articles and other expenses, $170,768. Grand total of expenses, $22,261,553. Town amendment revenue. Tax revenue at levy limit, $18,195,448. Debt exclusions, $1,107,404. Local receipts, $2,395,553. state aid, $563,148. Total revenue, $22,261,553. Total expenses, $22,261,553. Awesome, right?
I did it.
I need better glasses, Jack.
Yes. Ken, thank you very much for putting this together. Just a quick question. On the page 81, the probably with finance department,
Yes.
on that last line right there. $12,200. In the far column, it says it's reflected as 0% reason, and then it says 5% reduction. Seems like we have to grab.
I'm going down the spreadsheet to see.
It's the difference between requested and actually what was.
Correct, which is a 5% reduction. Instead of 0,
Oh,
it should
you
say.
mean it's I guess-
Right?
I think it should say 5%.
Should say
204.95
Gotcha.
versus 21737.
Gotcha.
Just a typo.
Okay.
Yes, I got you.
And then page 8, similarly, under the debt service. If there's a $8,005, that's reflected as 0 there. Looks like it's a 1% reduction. Well, that, again,
Probably from formatting.
at formatting,
Yeah.
macros.
So the document is gone to print already, so you'll probably see it on the floor. Had to go yesterday. But I can fix it right now for the future. We can print them out. Yes, negative one. Thanks.
What was the other one we held?
Just a question on why the insurance doubled.
So that's based on the high number of IOD claims.
IOD,
Injury on duty, these guys can talk about that in the back. That's when the person gets injured during work. And then those, we have insurance for that regularly that runs about $30,000. But due to the high number of claims that we have on it, with the boys being out, it's right now, the current this year is $60,000 right now.
But these are for existing clients.
Yes,
That's on the carry for a long time.
not until these guys are retired out, right?
So on the injured on duties, yeah, until they're. So when a police officer or firefighter are injured on duty, state law, they continue to get their full pay. But yet the police chief and I need to put people in spots, which is what this insurance allows us to do. So we continue to get some insurance payout to fill those spots until that injured party is cleared to come back to work by a doctor or it goes through the retirement process. With that increase that I hear. Well, hopefully, since I've been here, we had a little rash of them in the fire department and those individuals. 2 of them have been retired out and 1 is going through the retirement process now. Should be finalized in the next month or so. And on the police side, it just depends on how that, but if we can. On the fire side, we've started doing full physicals, state physical abilities tests for firefighters before they start. Not saying that that was an issue with any of the current ones, right? But we're trying to do the upfront work to try and reduce the potential. So the goal is, the insurance company did talk to us as well to say, what are you going to do? So we're working to try and mitigate that. So moved. Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
It took you read through it. I said 20, sorry.
Time stood still. That wasn't 40
I'm
minutes.
sorry.
That's like a second.
You can close the hearing.
It's not. but let's
So-
just go.
One motion to close the meeting.
Close the hearing.
Close the hearing, sorry. Close the hearing.
So moved.
Second. Meeting adjourned.
So. You guys can vote. This case, vote.
Oh, closing the hearing. Close the meeting. All those in favor? Aye. And now you opposed, close the meeting. Sorry.
That's not.
Thank you, guys.
No, it's fine.
Part of the process. All right, and I guess you could wait and discuss. So.
Okay, this is all. So we are the Aquifer committee. You are. And we was passed this issue with the rooster and the notice, Daniels Road. Which being the animal control officer and the animal inspector, have got the roosters reduced. They haven't been eliminated, but they're reduced, and that's what
Yeah, when we heard,
biggest thing.
yeah, when we heard about it, it only took us like 2 months from start to finish to really what we think is that is the way. So we are pleased as a commission that we were able to mediate this problem. We were a little concerned when we heard that it was a petition coming to for, and we really don't think that's, I don't want to speak out of turn, but we really don't think that it's more of a neighbor problem than an overall town problem. So it's, and a little bit of a noise problem, but that's under control now that we've got the households down to 1 rooster per household. So it's nice that we're here, that we're able to mediate these problems. But we wanted to let you guys know we're not in favor of the petition, the bylaw change. This voted it down because it's unnecessary. Pass bylaw for
Yeah,
an issue.
I would agree 100% that I would, I'm not in favor. Is the petitioner, who's obviously the neighbor, are they satisfied with what's going on? Are they going to pass, are they going to request to pass over?
So they're not satisfied yet.
Not quite sure. We did follow up with them. What was it, Zach? You saw the box.
So- They made a complaint about the housing situation and safety of the rooster, so we talked to the barn inspector. And we did an inspection last week. And talked them into getting rid of,
At least one.
of the roosters that was causing the problem. And they're going to go back next week the barn inspector is going back next week to check that.
Because initially, the first complaint was against another house. And once we met with Kevin, animal control, and because they had 3 roosters, we found out. Next day, 2 of them went into the stew pot.
Solutions.
Yeah, so we think it's under control. And we didn't want to surprise anybody or guys wanted to just really let you know that as a commission, we're going to vote this down. And we didn't want to surprise it. So we really felt like we should let you know that we've been mediating the whole time. It only took us 2 months, but we think came to a good solution for people and that we will be voicing our opinions.
I mean, if we ever look into this even deeper, is this even one of those even if it was passed that it's, because it's a right to farm community that is it even legal, their legal stance?
I don't think we would have looked into it because it's a citizen's petition.
I didn't hear some.
Well, it's against what, MGO? 3A and 1A?
Yeah, it did come to light that, we had one other family come and talk to us about it. They weren't terribly upset, but they were a recent purchaser homeowners. And they said they had no idea that we were a right to farm community. So we would like to come back. We're gonna do some research and maybe come back to you guys and see how we can maybe get some signs put up at some, maybe in main entrance ways to the town, and just something simple. That just says Mendon right to farm community. So we just need to research how to go about doing that and what it would cost.
Chief Birdie had a comment. So I've been dealing with the funds correctly, and I know they're still, as far as I know, not happy with the situation down there. And I mean, we've gone there at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, we've heard it. So we're at the point where I think we go to the board meeting where it's, do we really charge them? Do we do? But I mean, as Mendon grows and we allow more developments like Pond Street, one over here on Providence Road, this is going to become an issue. It's been an issue more increasingly the more developments we have, but when you have small parcels of land, everybody getting close to each other, this isn't going to go away. You're going to probably start doing it a lot more. And we're going to deal with it more, so we'll be bringing it to you.
So we were talking about, is there anything we can do as a noise complaint situation rather than outright banning?
Right now, we criminally charge them. I don't think we want to be criminally charging our residents. I mean, the board could set up fines or something like that, but again, you're opening a can of worm there with the noise complaints too, because now we open it up with chickens. Now someone's gonna say the truck's too loud, and now they're gonna want someone cited for that.
Something that we've always dealt with, I think, across not just Rooster,
Yeah.
construction and all this stuff. You always hear, we don't have a noise ordinance, we don't have a noise ordinance, we can't do anything about it. Maybe there's time to like develop something simple and reasonable that includes this type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, outside of normal farming practices and those people who are under 61A, you know, unfortunately, those people can't contend with noise issues. There may be times when.
And if the board at some point wants to pursue this as other than a noise, because lot sizes will get smaller at some point. Then I think there's a better way of writing the law than just saying, you know, because there is a lot size that farmers are allowed to have for Massachusetts general law. So I think it would have to be a lot different than what's being presented.
I see the problem with any kind of noise complaint is a lot of times very subjective, you know, and it's difficult to make it objective, but it needs to be objective. Fine, I have to commend all of you. I spoke with a couple of members of your committee, and it's a wonderful resource to have this committee that can get to people to understand better immediate problems. I think Lonnie talked about the idea in the past, where we can't just try to get neighbors to talk and get one. Literally, maybe not the stew pot is the best one for chickens, right?
No, he was, that was for the judge, but he was going to exercise
But
that.
the point is, you were able to talk to them.
To be a good neighbor. He's actually glad to be a good neighbor, and so is the other person.
When I went there last week, they were receptive. They said instantly, we're gonna give it.
So I mean, it accelerated from nothing to a bylaw change when, if they had come to us immediately, we could have gotten this done in 2 months, and it never would have gotten into be written as a bylaw. So I think, you know.
Is there a way that it can be taken off the petition?
The short answer is no, because there was a petition, but then a number of citizens who signed it. So the only way it can be dealt with is for it to be passed over at town meeting or voted down. So certainly the petitioner, could be anything, just, you know, make a motion to pass over. And if it gets seconded, then it just gets passed over.
And then does it come back up automatically?
Not automatic. But somebody who voted against it, bring it up for reconsideration. Town moderator.
But they could also do another citizen petition.
Sure.
Right, they could, for the next,
I hope
I
if it
think-
comes up again, then we consulted on how to write one.
Well, and I think that, honestly, knowing if it came in front of us again, we would immediately involve them.
Better it does.
I have a good feeling, probably.
I don't really see a lot.
I hope so too.
Well, I don't want to say right now.
We're all for being good neighbors. We're all for being good neighbors. We really are. That's the.
And we didn't want to go under the gun, you know, if we have to make changes, then we want to be sure it's gonna, is our agenda.
and if it gets to the point, I think with public safety is suggesting we have some kind of a noise ordinance or deal with it. We don't have to go to the citizen petition because we could sell to, we put something on the annual or special, board. That rather than, or any elected board, now we do that.
Yeah, I'm just, I think it's more of a noise issue, just like a barking dog.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Thank you for.
Thank you guys.
I don't get to interact with you all much, so I'm glad you're coming tonight.
Oh, we're trying.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks again.
Hopefully.
See you at the town meeting.
Yes, definitely.
That's how it works.
I did.
You did.
Shirley.
Yeah, well, that's all right. I wanted to talk, wanted to have a follow-up conversation about this. I think the policy is fine. It's really basic and straightforward, but I wanted to talk about it in terms of access and ability around confidentiality around town information on private devices. So I had said to Mark last week, I wonder if there's a component of this that we should be looking at a little bit further about. Because in most of the cases where we're allowing telework or any kind of work, we are actually providing a device to them. And so we know that the town information is secure within that device. I'm a little bit apprehensive when we start talking about the possibility of adding access to town files or whatever to private devices outside of the town's devices. But maybe I'm overthinking it.
So is it, to that point, the direction. Switch hands right now, or do you want me to?
Yes, please.
Switch hands?
Can you sit on the other side?
I can.
Oh.
So. As whirlwind, I would say that. Direction that we're moving in with the SharePoint is, and the online version with OneDrive is. Can handle this in a situation where it's individual devices. Whereas we can lock it down to the point of an individual device that is in a town device, they can't do the sync up that we do. They can't do the downloads. They would actually have to work on the Word documents through the web-based portal of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those which come with product. At the same time, they wouldn't be able to download those. So we can put those safeguards in place. Or in the event that they have the device. The other part is that if somebody's, I understand where you're coming from. We also don't block people downloading an internal device to USB stick that they can just take out.
I know. Well, I was just trying to cover the bases because I know in the past, I mean, many years ago now, but we did have some issues with secure information that's not, which again, nothing super confidential, but just town information still being accessible to employees who are no longer employed within the organization and making sure we lock all that down.
Sure.
If they're not.
So in that space, this becomes a better. The way, again, the way that we're moving, once we disable their accounts, they cease to get the ability to access that data. So if we just block the syncing or not so much, even if we did block the sync, I mean, if we did allow the sync,
once we disable, they wouldn't be able to access it. It's going to just take away the links and bring them to that. If we did disable the sync as well, they wouldn't have access to the website to be able to access any of it.
Is there a way to give employees access to information and not allow them to disseminate it further? Because to me, that's the issue, right?
Sure, so. Yeah, but regardless of if they're home or not, in this instance that we're discussing, it wouldn't make a difference because they could come here. They could come in here and email it.
I don't see, like, thinking about my role, state government, we have access to all of it. There's no way to keep someone from sharing anything.
Right, and ultimately, there's a penalty. If you just-
Through the same tools,
Right.
correct?
Right, and so like, if you had to shut it down to access,
Right. Yes.
and there's two-factor authentication, all that
Yeah.
stuff to make sure that no one's logging into the system. It shouldn't be, whatever, but I don't think there's a way to completely eliminate the risk of someone sending information.
Because it becomes that, if you lock it down too tight, you're not effective to do your job. And, again, I think that anything that is really of critical or confidential nature, which is limited in the municipal world, right? That those, only the certain people that need access to that have that access. So you are obviously limiting that. It's not that in the building that every department can see every other department's folders. If there's a confidential folder for contracts and things of that nature, maybe Kim and Laura and Shelley have access to it, but nobody else has. So those are, but we can definitely make it secure enough that we're not crossing.
Yeah, I was just thinking that we should probably add something on there that says that I'd like to put something in there about being able to provide necessary equipment. I'm thinking about the possibility of somebody being immobilized for some reason and they have to be home for a couple of weeks for something that we offered, if equipment is available, that we offer to provide that, if they have the capacity to, do some sort of work or something. I just think we should put it right in there because sometimes the expectation of having to use your own devices might be a little bit off-putting to people,
Sure, and that's great. Two things on that. We can also take a look at the security policy to make sure that it's in there that you're not allowed to. Obviously, it should be a gift, but if it's not written down, we can't. The other piece is too, in the event of somebody's got to work from home or due to an illness for a long period of time, we can actually, once we're completed with full migration, we can take their telephone and their desktop computer, bring it to the house and set it up, and everything would work right there.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
I guess I see what you're saying in terms of I don't use my personal laptop. Public domain. So you don't want to have that mixing.
In my case, in my company I work for, I can't get on that. Right. Now there are some, in some cases, if someone has a computer in their office, they do have a way to take a home PC and goes to their machine, get on their work machine. They cannot do anything except see printing copies. So
Right, and I mean, a lot of times, like I'm saying, I think just making it clear that it's an option goes a long way because the people are, there's a lot of apprehension around stuff like that. But I mean, based upon the technology that we have right now, we're working basically for a few years. So I want to make sure going forward that if somebody wants the option, they know that it's a possibility.
as you pointed out, if they need the option.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So what do we want to do? Well, I think it looks the way it is. I think it's general enough.
It's, I
Covers all the bases.
think it's fine. I just wanted to,
If we accept it now and put it in place, and then we can make
and it could be, because this could be a device management policy instead anyway, rather than whatever, right?
Agreed.
Well, it should be, I mean, we should have had this need to define what telework is. Where people work, so.
So the only question I have that I had on it was, it says that and it says that, I'm not sure exactly what's, that it says that it approved by, Kim's position. In the event that Kim needs it, that she get approval from the chairman of the select board or something like that. That makes sense that we would just adjust that information, because she doesn't have anybody to go to.
It doesn't say managers and supervisor.
No, I thought it was,
You could change the first line where it says town administrator and just put select board as final approval of such given. You could put town and or select board.
Oh, okay, there you go. On that last line of the first paragraph.
Right. That way, because if I'm not here and something comes up,
Sure.
right?
Yep. Do you want to say select board or the chairman? Just because how, you don't want to call
Back to the
it.
whole meeting.
Yeah, right, the
Okay,
chairman of
put
the select board would
select
have the designation.
Okay.
Does that make
Select
sense?
board chair.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Okay. Done.
Now, is this gonna be part? I think it is part of personnel policy
Yes,
as a new section.
yes.
That way, instead of referring things, it's part of the one.
Great.
Made a motion.
So with that edit, there isn't. With the edit that we just talked about, I make a motion to approve the other policy agreement. April 2022, we just discussed.
Second.
David?
Aye. Consider appointment for inspection services, office coordinator, health administrator.
Okay, so as you know, we have been working towards filling this new position within the organization. HR and I and the Board of Health worked together fast and furiously over a couple of days. We received over 65 applications. We did phone screens and interviews with a dozen. Shelley and I did Zoom interviews over 2 days with 8 of the candidates. The Board of Health, along with Mark and Shelley and I, interviewed the final top 3 candidates. And then we all independently submitted our recommendations based upon their interviews, and we're all unanimous in our selection of the candidate. So I'm very pleased to recommend to you, it says John, but it's Jack Mcclellan. He comes from over 25 years of professional service as an office manager, and he has some experience in working in municipal life, having served as an animal inspector for 6 years. Animal control officer for 6 years on and off in different municipalities. He has a tremendous background in an office setting and managing personnel, and I'll just say many great candidates in this applicant pool. And I think we couldn't have gone wrong with a lot of the selections, but I think Jack is definitely a home run for the town.
So the Board of Health is happy.
I'm sure they'll be happy as soon as he gets in the door. But his background check came out stellar as anticipated.
At the motion. Move to appoint Jack McClellan to the full-time position of Inspection Services Office Coordinator, Health Administrator, 40 hours per week at a rate of $6.79 per hour.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Great. I believe he's starting Monday.
Get any better?
You know, it's funny, you still have the presentation.
Yeah.
Oh,
great.
First, right? Am I saying that?
Consider chapter 90 request. Budget request, Blackstone.
I did hear from Alan today. He couldn't make it tonight, so he had just asked that we will in support of his Right.
What's the mechanism for this versus? This is all done within the budget every year, right? This is just an extra money, sir.
No, this is how he actually allocates the money that were recognized towards projects, the individual projects.
We have to sign off, it's a check everything. This year.
So research in Wesley Drive, from Wesley Drive to 38 to Blackstone Town. Project getting smart. Okay. And
Crack ceiling, it's
So that research was done, has that already been done, or is it? Was done.
oh, so it's one of these.
Just for the university. Yes, it's the university. Project request ones are the university.
Oh, sorry, we are.
Long as it's read this motion.
Yeah.
Move to approve the chapter nine of the project request. Blackstone Street in the amount of $281,063.20, and to approve the chapter nine reimbursement request of $43,027. Crack ceiling down on the streets.
Second.
Aye.
Sign annual town election.
Sure, just in time.
Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the May 17, 2022 annual town election warrant.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Consider award of water and sewer sector. We just leave it.
I mean, it's an impossible task, but I had some thoughts about it.
Okay.
What?
What's wrong?
Nothing we can, so what are we doing? Considering.
We're gonna make a, we have to award it, right?
You have to choose.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Oh,
We have to pick one of those two firms that gave the presentation on water and sewer.
Yeah. I like the second one better.
I had two thoughts. So I do like the first firm. I feel like they deal with maybe smaller projects, small municipalities. The second firm is a little more aggressive, which could be good or bad, depending on our knowledge of knowing that we're going to be dealing with another municipality, but I also felt reassured by the fact that he said that he'd actually dealt with the same exact thing in the community that he was in. So he has intimate knowledge of what we're going to be going.
And the local.
Yes.
What I thought was great that I heard in the second one. Talked about. Seemed like he understood the issue, like, we're not looking at just a liar experience, we're not looking to put municipal water supply for everybody in town. This $150,000 that originally, Brian Murray tried to get us $300,000. Specifically look into a public water supply for the town hall for this campus and the as well as the senior center and that Aquifer. That seemed to be the first thing that second firm talked about was, identifying exactly what the need is. And there's no full on conclusion. That's why I
think are both. Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
I was,
No question.
That's
just a little more.
And I also, the locality and. Sorry, between being from Douglas, I'm working in local communities, knowing, having an intimate knowledge of already what's going on around us. And then seeing that aerial shot, and not that this made any decision, but
of the areas of the municipalities around us that everybody has it, and the capability that we have for interconnection, which would be huge. Again, you don't want to have to rely on them, but be able to supply each other.
It's an option.
Yeah.
Well, like in the reality is for sewer. Uxbridge has huge capacity. Why would we go?
You know, could just increase theirs as well. Oh, they're in the process.
Yeah,
there.
but they have to, they actually have to make it available, I'm told, if they use federal money, so that's the way it works.
So anyway, and
Bravo.
accept the motion.
You had a big one.
Yeah.
Just recommend Woodward and Curran.
Move to recommend Woodward.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank God.
Great. Move to enter into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, Purpose 2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Police chief's contract, library director contract, discussion of sessions of advancing members and bargaining position. Reconvene to adjourn, roll call vote.
Second.
All in favor?
Any other?
All in favor.
Let's take Bill first, because I have to give